Ladies and gentlemen, we are live here. After a decently long hiatus, I decided to come back and drop a video on you guys. So, I'm starting off this time where I've been busy with work and or sick with my first installment of a critique through history in some time. So, this took a lot of research, and I'm going to break this down into every single part of the Jurassic, which I'm probably going to do with every single time period going forward from here on out. So this is how this is going to work. I'm going to start with basically the mass extinction that defines each and every serious period. So if you didn't know, most of the boundaries we make in, I guess, geology, paleobiology, etc., most of those boundaries that you see are a result of a clear distinction between rock composition and also biota composition between one layer and the other. So you can like clearly distinguish where one set of animals ends and where another begins. And just so happens that that is a result of what we call faunal or floral. I guess it's not necessarily interchange, but a series of overturning of previous biota for new ones. So there is some continuity. There, it isn't like there's just all the species die out and we get all new species, but there is something to say about just species appearing out of nowhere, which is what I'm going to cover in this installment. So as you know, in the last couple installments, I've been really heavy on the technical side of defining what is a species, because there's three different species concept. Taxonomy versus phylogeny. How is that explained? And today I'm just going to reiterate just a little bit of that. So we have three species concepts. Biological species concept, which is predicated on the ability of two animals to exchange genes or reproduce with each other. Morphological, which is predicated on similarities of the skeleton, of the body, of life history, everything. And then the third one is a lineage species concept, which is built upon presumptions of shared descent. So I'm going to go from there and mention the fact that when you get to the end of the Permian, so now we're in the lower Triassic, this whole unknown, they say Siberian traps, who the hell knows, mass extinction happens over all of Pangaea. So at this time, the Earth was literally just one single landmass. 85 to 90% of marine life is gone. So in marine invertebrate species specifically, gonzo, 85 to 95%. Just to put that in perspective, if I mean that's an incredible amount. That's so many species that any way you slice it, it is the most devastating marine mass extinction in history. And keep that in mind as we go forward. People want to act like, oh, now that we're past the Cambrian, like we have all this diversity. You still have a long period of quote unquote recovery after all of this is going on. So lower Triassic is considered a recovery period for all these biota. So it says the Permian mass extinction was the most extensive in history of the Earth. It should be noted that certain many groups were showing evidence of a gradual decline long before the end. On land, four-legged vertebrates and plants suffered significant reductions in diversity across the Permian-Triassic boundary. Only 30% of terrestrial vertebrate genera survived to the Triassic. One of them was this pig-sized dude called Lystrosaurus. And what I mentioned last time at the very end of my Permian critique was the idea that such an unassuming and basically just generalist pig-sized animal could survive such a drastic mass extinction. In fact, Lystrosaurus is probably one of the largest creatures to ever survive a mass extinction in Earth's history. At the end of the KPG mass extinction event, no animal really bigger than a cat survived that mass extinction, which is why when I get there, it's going to be incredible when you go from, you know, gerbil-sized perissodactyls to Borotherium, the size of rhinoceros, or Brontotherium, I mean, the size of a rhinoceros in just 8 million years. So keep in mind, this pig-sized animal survived one of the worst mass extinctions in Earth's history. So that was where I kind of left off. But here's an explanation. So all of Pangaea, this is the view they had of the Paleotethys. This is Pangaea. Laurasia is kind of splitting away. But you still have this huge, gigantic landmass. All of these mountains that you see in the west of Gondwana, all of those are creating a rain shadow in the continent. So most of Pangaea is still very arid. And The only way they would get respite, really, is from these large gyres here that will push weather systems inland and make most of what was Arabian Africa fairly wet, while what is going to be South America is fairly arid. So the center of Pangaea, especially this area boxed in by mountains on basically three sides, very dry. And that's most of what encompasses modern South America. However, most of the rest of Pangaea wouldn't have been like this, and there's an assumption made. In fact, I'll show you the assumption being made right now. So the assumption being made from, where was it? Good Lord. I think it was up. I actually think it was in the same article. So there's like this assumption that it, like, the Triassic was very homogeneous, very samey, very simple. Let me see. They talk about subduction zones. Oh, here we go. Worldwide climatic conditions of the Triassic seem to have been much more homogeneous than the present. They say this like they know this. So here's one of the things that kills me. They say these things like they know this. They have no idea what the climate was really like. They're basing it on assumptions by rewinding plate tectonics. It's like you rewind plate tectonics. You got to admit, the further back you go, the larger the margins of errors accumulate. So it's like a 1% chance of being wrong. So say you go back 1,000 years, and there's a 1% chance every year that you get some calculation wrong. If you go back 250 million years, and every single year you have a 1% chance of being just slightly off, how big is your margin of error then when you go back 250 million years? This is the same thing I talk about with the base pairs when I use PopGen to talk about how much your genome will change over time, how genomes will have to either accelerate or decelerate their mutation rates miraculously in order to justify what's going on. So when we're at the end of this, it says, the emergence of supercontinent reduced the reduction of coupled land area coupled by continental shelf seas and led to widespread aridity over most land areas. Here's the thing. It's like you're assuming that all of this, like if you had a warmer planet, wouldn't you have stronger storms, especially monsoons? It's kind of bizarre to me how they make all of these assumptions. Several indicators of an arid climate, including red sandstones and shales that contain few fossils, lithified dune deposits with cross-bedding, salt pseudomorphs and marls, mud tracks, and evaporites. There's evidence for strong seasonal precipitation, exactly, like monsoons, including braided fluvial sediments, clay-rich whatever deposits, deltaic deposits, so in a delta, and riverbeds of fluvial and fluvial origin. Best resolved by postulating a monsoonal climate, particularly to the middle and late Triassic over wide areas of Pangaea. So here's the thing. A monsoonal climate is still typically labeled as usually a tropical climate or subtropical climate. So they're basically saying, oh, it's arid, but it's not arid. So instead of looking like Saudi Arabia like they postulated, instead it actually looks more like Southeast Asia or Japan. It's like these people are so full of themselves. It's incredible. And they completely contradict themselves because they'll find evidence of aridity in one area, something that supports their theory. And then guess what? They'll find something else another place and they get called out on it. Again, it's cherry picking. It's the constant and just revolting cherry picking that goes on all the time in all across biology, all across geography and geology. You see this cherry picking all throughout science, from physics to chemistry, all the way to biology especially. And so we see this like, oh, look at all this life. So the early Triassic biotas were impoverished, though diversity and abundance progressively increased during the middle late Jurassic times. So one thing I need to talk about real quick, because in the early Jurassic, we need to understand that guys like Lystrosaurus were the norm. And early Triassic animals really encompass a lot. I mean, again, it's impoverished. We don't really find much in the Triassic boundary. When they say the biota is impoverished, when they say, oh, we have limited biota took millions of years to recover. What they're saying is we haven't found jack shit in basically this solid 10 to 15 year line, 10 to 15 million year line. And I'm going to show you. So if we go to this article posted by the Natural History Museum, they talk about Silosauruses. So I'll show you what a Silosaurus looks like. It looks like a deer lizard, basically. This is like, this rendition of it is pretty good. It's literally like a four-legged deer lizard looking thing. But the Silosaurus, art by JRC. This is one that I prefer because it gives you a few different species of Silosaurus. So they call them dino whippets, I guess. That was one. Here's another kind of like picture of them that's pretty cool. I'll show you that one. They're like bipedal. They don't know what they are. To be quite frank, they don't know what they are. So here's another Silosaurus. They don't know if they're dinosaurs. They don't really know what these Silosauruses are. But we know that these are another one of the guys that supposedly survived the in-Triassic mass extinction because they had to. I mean, where else are they going to come from? So these guys survived, the Silosaurus. And as you can see, it's a quadrupedal lizard-like animal. It looks almost like a bird or typical dinosaur, except for the fact that it is like ostensibly four-legged. What they can't figure out with Silosaurus is exactly how it relates to dinosaurs. Because here's the skeleton of Silosaurus. You know, very efficient-looking animal. You know, completely quadrupedal. All four legs are in a completely erect posture, very able to carry its weight, and not very strong evidence that was able to locomote on two legs. There's certain things that stand out. The hip structure is slightly different than that of a dinosaur, but you still see a Saurischian sort of hip position. You see the sclerotic ring. It's a diapsid. You have a lot of characteristics that point to that of a dinosaur. And if we go back to like where the dinosaurs came from, here we go. It's so here we go. So bipedality is really important for defining early dinosaurs. So that means they had to modify hip and backbone connections. The tops of thigh bones were the bones to join the hip, plus the joints of the knees and ankles. So here we go. So I know all of these traits that they have for the dinosaur. There's a 10 to 15 million year gap that separates the common ancestor of Silosaurids and dinosaurs from the first two dinosaurs. So there's this 10 to 15 million year gap where they don't know where the hell dinosaurs actually came from. So their earliest supposed ancestor or relative of the dinosaurs, the Silosaurids, it's not known. So there's a partial fossil of Nyasasaurus found in Tanzania. It includes an arm bone plus a few vertebrae. So shows some sacral vertebra. It's too fragmentary to say whether or not for certain it was a dinosaur. But Nyasasaurus is the only animal that has been tentatively put in the gap as to whether the same age as the earliest Silosaurs. So it can mean it's the earliest dinosaur, or it could be close relative of dinosaurs. So here's the thing. It's like that's all you got to work with from the fossil record. Like I said, the it's not a matter of is the data there? How much data do you actually have? You don't even have enough remains of this animal to even definitively say if it's anything, it might be a Silosaur, it might be this, it might be. It's like you have a cupral sacral vertebrae and an arm bone, and that's all you have to work with. Are you going to make any definitive decisions based on this? You could say, oh, it's another Silosaur, but are Silosaurs dinosaurs? No. They have a lot of characteristics that define them from dinosaurs. So where do dinosaurs come from? What is the actual origin of dinosaurs? And they don't know. So the lower Triassic is full of mysteries because guess what? A lot of the creatures that survived the end are guys like Lystrosaurus. I think he even has a Lystrosaur illustration here. But the Silosaurs are not dinosaurs. You see them clearly as distinct creatures that they try to tie into being the origin of dinosaurs. But can you definitively say that dinosaurs came from Silosaurs or Silosaurids? You can't. So in the lower Triassic, you have guys like Lystrosaurs. And if we go to Lystrosaurus, so we see it in early Permian period. It lasts to 200 million years ago. So the dinosaurs ostensibly appeared at 245 million years after that gap occurred. They lived even farther than this. So the Lystrosaurs, one of the longest lived vertebrate species ever on Earth. They lasted 50 million years. 50 million years. To put that in perspective, that's about the same amount of time they said it took for a creature like Mesohippus to evolve into modern Equus. It's the same amount of time. I mean, if you go back 50 million years, you're basically back in the early days I mean, I even think you're out of the Eocene and even into the Paleogene, maybe, but you're definitely deep in time. 50 million years is an incredible amount of time for such a primitive animal to survive, and yet it did. And it just goes to show it's not all about evolution. We have a meter-long, pig-sized animal with no special adaptations of any kind, complete generalist. And they say that while it also lived for 50 million years, it was probably the ancestor of all of these different Lystrosaurs that appeared after time. So here we go. So let me see. So Lystrosaurus is basically found all over the world, and it was kind of a big thing to prove the whole plate tectonics hypothesis, which up to that time was very much up in the air, much more up in the air than people think, because plate tectonics were not a sure thing, and how the plates were configured were even more of a not sure thing. But here we go. Here's continental drift. We have Lystrosaurus, which have evidence for in Antarctica, India, and Africa, and then Cynoognathus, which is found in South America and Africa, and then Glossopteris, which is found basically everywhere. So we see that Lystrosaurus is an important part of this continental drift, but if we look at terrestrial biota, back to Wikipedia, which I absolutely hate, but I didn't find any other source that actually gave me what I needed for this entry. So apologies, but they have cynodonts like Galosaurus. So this is a carnivorous cynodont. We see that there. Again, relatively small guy. Kind of, I mostly think that the fossorial or burrowing. Thrinaxodon's a big one. Thrinaxodon was found with a temnospondyl in a cave or like in a burrow. So that's a big one. Again, another burrowing animal that we see that is slotted in as the ancestor of all these different later animal groups, especially cynodonts, which they say are the ancestor progenitors of the mammals. And then we get the first archosauriforms. So we have here in the early lower Triassic, Erythrosuchus, which I pointed out that was in the Onechelian. So that was there. So Erythrosuchus, I can show you where that guy was. So, and Erythrosuchus is really cool because its head was so big compared to its body. I'll just do the same thing. I'll search for the Erythrosuchus, not the Wikipedia. I want the actual images. But yeah, so this is Erythrosuchus. These are the Erythrosuchus fossils. I'll even save this one. Yeah, so this is Erythrosuchus africanus, and you can see how large the skull is compared to the body. So Triassic animals, they weren't chumps. Like there's this assumption that, oh yeah, these Triassic animals were extremely primitive compared to the later. It's like this is a fully bipedal creature, mostly bipedal creature that could, I mean, absolutely destroy you. I mean, you look at this, and it's like, oh, it's got a semi-sprawling bulldog posture. I did not mean to say that. It's got this semi-sprawling bulldog posture, but then this massive skull and neck and everything. And it's just formidable. And I'll go again with art by JRC, because as you saw with the Silosaurus, I don't know if you caught it, but he also made a pretty good one of Erythrosaurus. There's a lot of different like art here from him. Here's a very common one I see, Mark Whitten. That's Mark Whitten's Erythrosuchus. I think I said Erythrosaurus, but it's Erythrosuchus. Garangia, yeah. So that's one. And then there's this one. Yeah, art by JRC. This is a good one. So this shows you like the relative size. So these guys got big. So Erythrosuchus africanus is the big one, and you can see just how massive this animal is compared to people. So against a full-grown man, we wouldn't stand a chance. And that's the kind of animals that were bumping around basically within 15 million years after this catastrophic mass extinction took place. I mean, we look at the timeline. You got Erythrosuchus from where? The Olenekian Ladinian period, which says is, oh yeah, it looks like just, yeah, so this is 252. that would be what, just 6 million years after the end of the Triassic, if that. 6 million years. And then there's the Smithian-Spathian boundary event, which they consider another extinction. Disaster taxa. So Paleozoic species that survived the Permian-Triassic extinction event flourished in the immediate aftermath of the extinction. Ammonoids, conodonts, and radiolarians suffered drastic losses. Marine reptiles such as ichthyopterygians and sauropterygians diversified after the extinction. So ichthyopterygians, like ichthyosaurs, and sauropterygians, like with later. So you look at these sauropterygians, you see the placodonts, you see Aristonectes, see all these guys. So this is like your plesiosaurs and all those sweet dudes. But you see them radiate even when 85 to 90% of the ocean dies, which isn't. It's just, how do you explain that? And they were like, "Oh, evolution," which for so many reasons, it's just so dumb. And the reason that there's such a distinction, it's like, okay, so they have this boundary event. So ostensibly, it takes late eruptions of Siberian traps, more extinctions, meh, meh, meh. But in 6 million years, you're going from lizards and nothing to these gigantic land lizards that are killing all kinds of stuff. You have silosaurs, you have lystrosaurs, you have larger dicynodonts. The dinocephalians, I'm pretty sure, were wiped out, but still, you still have all of these different animals that exist. And again, there's this 10 to 15 million year gap where people just don't know where dinosaurs came from or where dinosaurs come into all this. It's like 1 minute dinosaurs are nowhere. There's no dinosaurs. All you have are silosaurs that aren't dinosaurs. And you have these guys like Erythrosuchus running around. And then you look at all these animals. It's like, okay, you have cynodonts, you have Erythrosuchus. 6 million years, you get a gigantic, massive land killer. And then there's Dinosauromorphs. So fossilized footprints of Dinosauromorphs are known from the Unikelian. This is 6 million years after the most dangerous. It's like 30% of vertebrate species remain. Lystrosaurus is like the largest animal that exists on land. It's the size of a pig. And within 6 million years, you get guys like this. Or you get Silosaurus, guys like this. So it's like you're getting animals like that after how many millions of years? Animals like this after just 6 million years. 6 million years. Like, I don't know in what universe you're living in. How do you get this? And how do you get basically this? It's like these two animals, you look at them and you think, oh yeah, that makes total sense. 6 million years, it's a long time. But then you have this other extinction event that happens right after the end. So there's two back-to-back extinction events. If you look actually at the history of the Triassic, you'll see that there's this event. Just, what is it? It's 253 million years. You get the Permian Triassic extinction event. Then just 3 million years after that, you get this extinction event. So 251 million years, and then you're getting Erythrosuchus just a couple million years later. Full recovery of wooded trees. So before wooded trees even recovered, you're supposedly getting cow-sized predators on land. So before trees, even if it says right here, full recovery of woody trees, before trees had even recovered, you get guys like this and guys like this running around eating things on the planet. Not to mention my man Lystrosaurus over here, surviving for 50 million years unaltered, while also supposedly being the progenitor of all these different species. So, oh yeah, we're back. Oh, nice, man. You're gonna start your actual driving. That's good. I started my my new job in the month that I've been gone. But yeah, man, I'm glad to see you back too. I'm hopping right into this. But so I'm covering the lower Triassic today for a reason. And the reason I'm covering it is because I want to explain to people this timeline. So you have the Induan, which is this really just bad area where you find nothing in between the Permian Triassic extinction event, which is the greatest mass extinction event in history, 85 to 95% of marine life and 70% of land life, all of them are gone. So all of that species biota, by any species concept you go by, most of the morphological, gone. Almost nothing you find is in the Induan. But then suddenly in the Onekelian, you get these giant animals. You start to see megafauna reappear, or at least mesofauna reappear, even before trees recover. So in just a couple million years, I'm serious, in just a couple million years, within 5 million years, you're seeing all of these animals crawl out of the woodwork with no real explanation. And then suddenly, if we go back here, with 245 million years ago, you suddenly see dinosaurs when the only thing we had were these guys before. So you had these sauropodomorph and whatever. They're like, oh, well, maybe we'll find a little lizard dinosaur thing. But it's like, no, you see these fully developed sauropodomorphs that we're not even sure are even that closely related to dinosaurs. And then we just see dinosaurs out of nowhere. So it's like we have the first ostensible dinosaurs. We can say that like, oh, we need more data, but you don't even know where dinosaurs come from. And yet you're going to sit here and tell us about all this history of the earth bullshit. I don't get it. So we look at the Triassic, we see that like, oh, well, early Triassic biotas were impoverished until you suddenly got these massive lizards out of nowhere. And then you basically have this massive cope. So periodic large-scale mass extinctions have occurred throughout the history of life. Indeed, this is how the basis of the geologic eras were first established. So that's kind of what I talked about in the very beginning. How every single division in our taxonomy, like think about it. Every single series I've ended, or every single stream I've ended with a mass extinction. That's because every single period, with the exception of the Carboniferous, basically ended with a gigantic mass extinction or floral or faunal turnover. So even though the Permian mass extinction was the most extensive in the history of the Earth, it showed that many groups are showing evidence of gradual decline. So they talk about the decline, but then they also have to explain all these invertebrates die, the food chains collapse, yet Sauropterygians and Ichthyopterygians all diversify. So these large marine mammals that feed on fish, feed on invertebrates, somehow were diversifying when all the invertebrates died out, somehow. And invertebrate animals were less affected. So fossil marine, so shell crushing placodont's, fish eating nothosaurs, they did not survive the Triassic. So the nothosaurs did not survive the Triassic, but were the ancestors of large predatory plesiosaurs in the Jurassic. Okay, so they didn't survive, but their ancestors did. They've just basically legacied in the ichthyosaurs and or the plesiosaurs into these nothosaurs. So this is what a nothosaur is kind of just like a big monitor lizard looking thing, and they just kind of like Pokemon evolved it into a plesiosaur in the Jurassic. So the ichthyosaurs were the largest inhabitants of the seas, distantly related to the lepidosaurs, which are like snakes and lizards. So it's kind of crazy to think about. One of the old, so Dinocephalosaurus and Archosauromorph gave live birth, oviviviparous birth, not placental birth. But this is what's crazy. It talks about the therapsids, suffered pulsive extinctions in the late Permian. They were virtually extinct by the end of Jurassic, so the therapsids. But Lystrosaurus survived for 50 million years. So its fossils have been found in India, Southern Africa, and Antarctica. Widespread. So the first true mammals, which were very small, appeared in the late Jurassic. So we're not going to get to that yet. But look at this. So you got the Thecodonts, you got the Cynodonts, you got the ancestors of mammals surviving, you got these pig-sized Lystrosaurs surviving, and yet we see that dinosaurs slowly take over from nowhere. So the dinosaurs emerge from literal thin air 245 million years ago, and so do, of course, our boys, the pterosaurs. So the pterosaurs appear, but I'm not going to get into them until I get into like the middle Triassic. This is purely just to go into one phase. Yeah. So, exactly. So, pigs, these Lystrosaurs were the largest animals on the planet basically at the time. We find them all over the earth. They were the largest animals on earth at the time. And there was absolutely nothing special about them. So, they survived for 50 million years while the rest of the clade declined. And yes, it is basically Pokemon. Because where did these dinosaurs... So you're telling me dinosaurs just came from what? It's until we find like some lizard lectictidium or something. it's not going to make any sense where dinosaurs came from unless you legitimately claim that they came from Silosaurs or came from this Niasaurus, this partial remains of the Niasaurus. We just don't have any evidence for where dinosaurs actually came from. We just know that sometime the lower or middle Jurassic, that's why I'm covering it, or Triassic, so I'm covering it here, something had to survive the lower Triassic that led to dinosaurs, supposedly according to evolutionists. But we don't find that. So when we go back to like first dinosaurs, like look at this. This is a Plateosaurus. So this is the late Triassic. We see this guy show up pretty much later on. I'm going to cover the late Triassic and the radiation of dinosaurs in a different, or in the next installment. I think I'm covering the middle Triassic next, as well as some earlier stuff. So this is going to be a three-parter for the Triassic because it's too much data. So we do see that the Cynodonts survived, but all of this fauna on land. Let's see. Typical of this group are the Archosaurs. So first encountered the early Triassic, the Thecodonts became common in the middle of the Triassic, but appeared before the beginning of the Triassic. So the Thecodonts are a group of primitive Archosaurs. So here, I'll show you a Thecodont. Thecodont. So these are the Thecodonts. And they don't really bear any serious they're not really dinosaurs. We don't really know what they are, but they're supposedly, look at what this guy says, give rise to crocodilians, dinosauria, and pterosaurs. So these guys, who they just kind of like cherry pick as the ancestors of dinosaurs, don't ever become dinosaurs. In fact, they die out. They never actually become dinosaurs. They're found all throughout the Triassic, and then they die out. So that's what's funny to me is they mentioned these Thecodonts. Thecodonts are also supposedly, they have a digit structure more similar to birds, like a 2, 3, 4 digit morphology. And there's a long time where they thought that birds didn't derive from dinosaurs, but late surviving Thecodonts. But they died out. They died out before the beginning of the Jurassic. So Thecodonts were already on the scene before, in the middle Triassic, but it's not really. We think dinosaurs actually predated the Thecodonts. So dinosaurs don't come from Thecodonts. This is actually outdated, which just shows you when you first Google this stuff, you got to do your research because this is actually an outdated theory, supposedly. But there's still people that adhere to the Thecodont hypothesis for both birds and dinosaurs. But in the Triassic, where small bipedal forms belong to Pseudotsuchians. So it's already been decided that these Pseudotsuchians, like Papasaurus, even though they resemble dinosaurs, and I'll show you Papasaurus, even though they resemble dinosaurs, if you look at their ankle morphology and you look at their body composition, if you look at their skeletons, you can still see that these, like this is Papasaurus, you would think that, oh yeah, this is a dinosaur, but then you have ankle morphology that clearly points to crocodilians. So not a true dinosaur, more so related to crocodiles, which is what makes this so difficult, is that the Archosaurs, when you're just comparing morphology, it's impossible to draw definitive conclusions about descent. Again, taxonomy is just a way of combining the similarity between species. This is what botanists do all the time. You're keying out the similarities between species and forming taxonomic trees that way. It doesn't speak upon descent. Descent is a completely different argument. Again, it comes back to the egg theory, how eggs were formed without the necessary amino acids. Yeah, and it's the same debate. Eggs just miraculously formed out of the thin blue sky out of nowhere during the Carboniferous. It's like eggs just appeared out of nowhere. It's like, how did you get the genes? How did you get the actual process, all the equipment needed? It's like your entire reproductive system has to be engineered towards laying an egg, or it won't be able to lay an egg. It's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's a tough debate because it has to be the chicken. There's no way you can get an egg without all of the machinery necessary to basically create an amniotic egg. It's just jumping from an egg like an amphibian has to an amniotic egg is insanity. It's like it has to be one jump, one generation. You cannot have any in-betweens here. Even like a lizard, even the most primitive amniotic egg is still so much more complex than any amphibian egg or fish egg out there. And what has to happen for that to occur has to not only happen in one generation, it has to happen perfectly. or else the animal's not going to be viable. So a perfect one generational creation of it's like, how does the egg form partially? You can't have a partially formed egg. And we know this because we see animals with partially formed eggs all the time and they're not viable. So already scientific process has disproven this partial egg theory because partially formed eggs are not viable eggs in any species we know of. So there we go. It's all back to the egg. How do you get dinosaurs that are definitively dinosaurs out of the thin blue sky out of nowhere when you already have Erythrosuchus, Lystrosaurus, you have Pseudotsuchians, you got all of these creatures crawling out of the woodwork now after this massive extinction event turned over 70% of species on land. You have Sauropterygians and Nothosaurs and Ichthyopterygians, the ichthyosaurs, all diversifying while the staple prey that they have are all gone. It's like, it's a really hard thinker for me to justify what these people are telling me. It's like, oh, this is the worst mass extinction event in history, but the creatures higher up on the food chain are diversifying while creatures lower down on the food chain have all died out. How does that make any sense? I don't see how this makes sense. Oh, all the prey species, all the squid, all the ammonites, all these different invertebrate species, they really took a hard hit. Most of them died. 95% of all these invertebrate species died out. And so what then happens to the creatures that rely upon them for food or eat the creatures that are dying out? They diversify, they get more diverse in specios. Something's not adding up. It's fishy, and no pun intended, what's going on here, but it's exactly like the egg scenario. We're expected to believe that just out of the blue, suddenly we get all these new species for some reason. And then we have flying reptiles. So think about it. The first pterosaurs, we're covering this, but we see them sort of come from nowhere too. We don't know where these guys come from. So we look at the origins of pterosaurs, and we just have no idea. It's like they don't even really want to cover it. They have this bouncing thecodont maybe thing that they might say their sins. It's we don't know. They too appear out of the thin blue sky. They say they're hard to preserve, this and that. But explain to me where they come from. Where did pterosaurs come from? So we look at pterosaur origin. Here's what you get if you look up pterosaur origin. So if we look up the origins of pterosaurs, this is the Scientific American. So they have this little lizard on a tree because, of course, it's going to metamorph, shapeshift, evolve into a pterosaur. And so Aeschylopteron was a 233 million-year-old creature that belonged to a group of reptiles known as the Lagarpterids, which are suspected to be the precursors of pterosaurs. Suspected. 233 million years ago. So pterosaurs appear in the fossil record as pterosaurs, with no consensus on what reptiles they evolved from, says Virginia Tech paleontologist Sterling Nesbitt. Here is the thing. It's like, pterosaurs are extremely fragile, but we don't know where they come from. Pterosaurs, dinosaurs, all these different lineages that appear in the Triassic, and it's just nothing but a clusterfuck. Do you know why now it took me so long to make this critique? Do you know why I had a sex quest ahead of this? This is so much shit to unpack. I can't fit it all in one live stream. I have to break this into chunks because the data is so much to present that I genuinely can't physically actually do it. I could make like a 4-hour stream where I go over all of this, but these are so many points to touch on that it's going to be difficult for me to do this in later streams. In fact, this stream is basically just going to be a teaser, and I'm going to truck through each section of the Triassic. But the late Triassic or the upper Triassic alone is something that's I'm going to have to dedicate a lot of time to, because pterosaurs, all of these different dinosaur lineages just appear out of thin air, and then within 10 to 20 million years, it's like in the same amount of time it took yak and cattle to diverge, you're getting gigantic multi-ton dinosaurs that are supposedly the progenitors of all the dinosaurs we'll see from there on. And we don't get a solid explanation for why the cynodonts didn't. It's like, why did the cynodonts, why did these creatures like the Lystrosaurs start off so strong? Why were the Lystrosaurs so widespread, and why were they so strong, but then die out basically at the end of the Triassic? And we know there's the end Triassic extinction event, but they were very quickly overshadowed by the dinosaurs despite having a massive advantage. Shouldn't they have metamorphed and shapeshifted into all kinds of different forms that outcompeted these dinosaurs again? Why did such adaptable and enduring dinosaurs that last for 50 million years suddenly just peter out without the massive diversification we see from the sauropods and see from the Eoraptors, the Saurischians and the Ornithischians, and all these different guys? The Sauropodomorphs diversified, the Ornithischians diversified, and by the time we get to the Triassic, it's all dinosaurs all day. You mammals can suck a dick. It's all us, boy. Rhynchocephalians, Cynodonts / mammals, y'all can bite it. The big dogs on the block of the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs. But where did these niggas come from? Where did these niggas pull up from? They came from nowhere. They're from absolutely nowhere. We don't know where the pterosaurs came from. We don't know where the dinosaurs came from. We don't know why the Lystrosaurus survived, but trust the science. Again, we don't know why the Lystrosaur survived. A pig-sized animal survived the worst mass extinction event in history, all over the planet. It survived where no other land animal really did. It was not we don't know if it was a burrowing animal. Nothing really special about this animal. It's a pig-sized animal, maybe. It's like if there was a nuclear Armageddon and the entire planet was blasted by nuke after nuke, and there was nuclear winter, complete holocaust of the entire planet. And motherfucking pigs survive. Pigs and gerbils. It's like just dead-ass pigs going around. It's insanity. And a pig is 10 times more adapted than a Lystrosaur. Like, a pig has way more going for it than a Lystrosaur. A Lystrosaur doesn't even have a perfectly erect posture. It's not even that good at getting across the land. It's like a big lizardy bulldog that is like kind of has some mammalian. It has a beak. It's like a pig platypus. It's like if the duck-billed platypus survived and no other species did. If the world got blasted in hellfire and the wombat made it out, no one else did. That's basically with Lystrosaurus. It's like if the goofiest, most dopiest animal inherited the entire planet, and then you go from that within 6 million years, you get this mofo, Sir Chomps-a-Lot, you get this dude, 6 million years. 6 million years. You know what 6 million years is? 6 million years is around half the time it took for gorillas and human beings to diverge from one another. Keep this in mind. 6.5 million years, 7 million years is around the time of the last chimp-human ancestor that's postulated. So the amount of time it took chimps and human beings to diverge, according to these Scientologists or scientists, you're getting this guy, you're getting this dude, and all of them are living side by side with this nigga right here. Bruh. And I'm going to look up, and that's Eusthenopteron. We'll talk about Lystrosaurus and just like what a miracle it is. But these guys died out. The Dicynodonts died out by the end of the Jurassic. But you still see how all these creatures survived. I'll show you the skeleton of Lystrosaurus. I showed you like they were not that big. But you can see how I mentioned they're not that assuming. Like, they're very much not these. Like, you look at the skeleton of a Lystrosaurus, and man, that is not screaming to you like top tier specimen. And I know that there's a lot of things about Lystrosaurus that make it special. But why the Lystrosaurus survived, one of the largest animals to ever survive a mass extinction event ever in Earth's history, and the fact that it survived it with no real explanation globally, is really telling. We find it all over the earth. And then within 6 million years, we get Celosaurus and Erythrosuchus from absolutely nowhere, including all kinds of different Saurischian dinosaurs, like Papasaurus, that we thought were dinosaurs. Oh, no, they're not dinosaurs. Oh, there's the Edosaurs. There's the Nothosaurs that were sea-dwelling. I think that's like a Ranisuchus. There's some, I think some of these are either Silosaurs or early dinosaurs. This guy, what is this guy? I don't read moon runes. But here we go. This is another Papasaurus. So we get these Pseudotsuchians, these creatures that are somewhat crocodilian in shape and morphology, but not really crocodilians. And then we get the same thing for dinosaurs, these what they called archosauromorphs, like the Celosaurus, and also their Erythrosuchus, but not actually archosaurs or actually dinosaurs or actually crocodilians. Just creatures that are somewhat close, but don't quite fit the bill. And that's where the early Triassic is such a mess. It's such a hot effing mess. And I just wanted to start off by saying that there were two extinctions right after. It's like that. There was an extinction 3 million years after on this boundary. After the Induan, there was the Smithian-Spathian boundary event, which occurred 251 million years ago. Keep in mind, this mass extinction occurred 253 million years ago, meaning that by the time we get Erythrosuchus, you only have a window of maybe 6 million years, only 6 million years, to go from creatures that are the size of iguanas to creatures the size of bears. And I'm supposed to buy this shit. Like, people are supposed to look at me dead in the eye and say, oh yeah, I know we don't know where pterosaurs come from. I know we don't know where dinosaurs come from. I know we don't know why all of these different myriads of forms exist and none of them have anything to do with it. But trust me, bro. Trust the science. I know that you can go from a lizard to this and to this and to this in just 6 million years. After the Spathian extinction event, just 3 million years after the Permian. And we still don't know where pterosaurs come from. Still don't know where dinosaurs come from. All of these mysteries that we don't have resolved, and yet there's a complete and utter record of exactly how things happen. Again, they were wrong about Pangaea's climate. They thought it was arid, and then they found all of this evidence of effluvial deposits. So we look back at the early Triassic climate, not on Wikipedia, but we're going to go over to the Smithsonian again, or Britannica, and we're going to look at over here. So if we look at the climate again, you'll see that the paleoclimate, they say, was homogeneous, that was less diverse. And then they talk about, there's all of this, paleoclimatic evidence is conflicting. So whenever they get proven wrong about anything, they just say the evidence is conflicting. Because at first they said it was completely arid. There are several indicators of an arid climate. So this is what scientific backpedaling looks like. For years, they claimed that the Triassic was a completely arid time in our history. That shit was bone dry, ain't no water nowhere. It looked like the Sahara Desert. All the walking with beasts, walking with dinosaurs, it made it look like it was a post-apocalyptic wasteland. It was basically like Fallout, but for dinosaurs and shit. And then you get more evidence, so it's like, continental climate with hot summers and cold winters. And you have red sandstones and shales, lithified dune deposits and cross-bedding, salt pseudomorphs and marls, evaporites and mud cracks, and then you see all this other stuff. On the other hand, there is strong evidence for strong seasonal precipitation, including braided effluvial sediments, clay-rich deltaic deposits, and red beds of effluvial and fluvial origin rivers. So what this tells me is that they picked specific locations that they knew were more arid, and then try to say, oh yeah, that's just more arid, when you could just look at an effing map of what they constructed and see, if you see warm water currents, that shows evidence that large river systems, so there's more evaporation. This is why you get hurricanes off the East Coast. You see that water evaporates more quickly when it's hotter. Duh. So the sun beats down on the equator there, and it moves all of this. You have all of Panthalassia, this massive ocean where large amounts of moisture are being driven up into the air, pushed by the current towards all of these island archipelagos, continued through the Tethys Sea, and blasts all of Pangaea basically with these monsoonal rains, moving up towards the north, in North America, Eurasia, hit partially by this shelf. And so the north is a bit more arid, the south is a bit more arid, the center is going to be seasonally wet, and there's rain shadow here making this part and this part arid. So you have a diverse array of climates on the earth. No shit. So they try to paint this very simplistic view of the climate and of the planet, but it doesn't actually work out that way. Instead, what you see is a very diverse paleoclimate but you still see a ubiquitous transition between the Lystrosaurs and the Dinocephalians and all these earlier guys into these new forms that just appear spontaneously out of thin air, starting in the middle Jurassic or in the middle Triassic. So what you're seeing here is a wonderful example of just how inconsistent a lot of these people are in terms of justifying their hypotheses and their speculations, because the actual fossil record itself is not as decisive as they want you to think. You would think that they would have a clear narrative of where dinosaurs and pterosaurs and crocodilians come from, but we don't know shit. We don't know what the ancestors of crocodiles or dinosaurs or birds or even mammals are. Because even the cynodonts at this time, if we look at the cynodonts, and we're trying to figure out, let's look at the cynodonts. These are supposedly the ancestors of mammals. They're from the late Permian to 100 million years ago. So they survived until the early Cretaceous, yet they're the ancestors of mammals, just like what they try to do with the chimp, saying the chimp's not what human beings descend from. It's a common ancestor. So I guess our cynodont common ancestor with the cynodont, which existed alongside mammals, but are supposedly the ancestors of mammals. So however that works. But almost mammalian appearance, widespread, all this. But why didn't they diverge? Why didn't the Lystrosaurs diverge? Why didn't they spread out and take up the niches that dinosaurs were going to take up? And why wasn't it guys like this? Why wasn't it like Erythrazuchus? And we know that Erythrazuchus and Deinosuchus and all these other creatures ended up being fairly prominent during their time on Earth. But the mystery is the dinosaurs and the pterosaurs came from nowhere and took over the planet. That's the issue. It's like the crocodilians and all these different archosaurs. The archosaurs appeared virtually out of thin air and then took over the world. And this is what it is. Yeah. The scientists, transformers, dinosaurs in disguise. It's like it's Autobots and Decepticons. Like, this is what I wanted to cover in this early Triassic stream. So I wanted to take this about hour-long stream to elucidate the early Triassic and the late Permian mass extinction event, because I wanted people to know just how retarded modern science is when it comes to trying to explain things that they know nothing about. It's like, you know that you know nothing about where the dinosaurs come from or where the pterosaurs come from, why Lystrosaurus survived, the impact of having a mass extinction just 3 million years after your last mass extinction. You have all these Siberian traps that you think caused a mass extinction, but you don't know. And then 3 million years after that, you have another mass extinction. Yet somehow, in the phrase of all this, a creature the size of a pig survives with no special adaptations whatsoever. And then you have dinosaurs, pterosaurs, crocodilians, and all these different miraculous creatures appear out of the clear blue sky. Science, evolution, just Darwinism at work. How does that make any sense? So this is what I wanted to cover first and foremost. Thanks for being along for this ride. I'm going to cover way more of the origins of the Archosaurs and focus on the Archosaur contrast in the next one. But yeah, we got Smock, we got Papasaurus, we got Pseudotsuchians like Adasaurus, Stephanosaurus, Ornithosuchus. And it's like a lot of stuff I'm going to cover next time is just talking about like how much it's discouraged. Like I talk about how genetics is discouraged in nature. I talk about modern mutation rates. I have a lot of notes for stuff I want to cover in the later streams, but I just wanted to get like a small introductory one done before I continue to the heavier stuff. Because without covering the early and middle Triassic first and getting those out of the way, because the middle Triassic is really where we're going to cover the origin of dinosaurs. And that's where I want to leave off, just showing and highlighting how impossible it is to match these timelines. But the lowest, earliest Triassic is probably one of the goofiest and most embarrassing periods of history for science, because it's straight up just people talking out of their ass a lot. Like, it's a lot of ass talking where they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They have no idea what the Earth was like. They contradict themselves about the climate. They contradict themselves about which kind of animals survive mass extinctions. They contradict themselves about their ideas of the food web when, oh yeah, the fundamental animals of the food web died out, but all these other animals diversified. It's like they're just over here holding their ass because all the shit that they say is true and totally what happened is turned on its head at that mass extinction event. And again, I could talk for fucking hours about the end Permian mass extinction event still, and it wouldn't do it justice. I've covered the major points. I've covered basically what we expected to see versus what we saw, and it's still a major mystery. There's a lot to be uncovered. I'm sure there will be a lot of research into the Triassic, especially the early Triassic, but again, it's one of the most ignored periods in paleontological history for a reason. We just don't have a lot. The Earth was completely scoured except for a few handful of species, which we don't even know how they survived. So the Earth is scoured basically of life, and it takes 10 to 15 million years for anything to really recover, except for these pig-sized animals that survived, of course. It takes the trees 10 to 15 million years themselves to recover. But before the trees even recover, you have massive bear-sized animals walking around. So it's like, you know, you could call me crazy for thinking there's more to life than just Darwinian evolution, but scientists are bullshitting people to their faces about what happened in the Triassic and about every period since. Yeah. And again, the scientists have been bullshitting people a long time before COVID, a long time before the whooping cough, a long time before the Tuskegee experiments, a long time before saying that smoking's good for you. Science has been bullshitting people for a very long time, but this is like the Piltdown man of modern science, is this whole Triassic bullshit about the origin of mammals. It's like the mammal origin is going to be more in the Jurassic, because again, trying to say where placental animals and live birth came from. The placenta thing is just as miraculous as the egg thing, like I mentioned, but that's serious. It's ridiculous. And yeah, dude, I try my best. Like, I'm screaming into the void. I don't give a fuck if anybody watches my streams. I really don't. I appreciate everyone, and I appreciate you, Emmanuel. Appreciate David. I appreciate DX. All these different dudes who drop by. Because I mean, I would be uploading and sharing these whether or not they got views. I'm just trying to show people, using my own formal education, using my own degree as weight, for what it's worth. So random yahoos can't go up to me and say like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about." Like, I actually know what I'm talking about better than most people on the internet, because most people with degrees and most people with letters after their names, by the time they get to a master's or PhD program, fully indoctrinated. They are fully indoctrinated by the time they get to a PhD. It's like talking to a PhD or saying you're a PhD doesn't really do anything for me. It's like, oh, I have my PhD in paleobiology, and it's like, although I would love to say like that's great, you probably have a large amount of expertise in this field, I know that a large amount of their expertise is just indoctrinated bullshit that they've learned, and it's impossible to get a PhD or master's student to humble themselves and realize, oh, you're not actually right. You don't know where pterosaurs come from. You don't know where dinosaurs come from, because their knee-jerk reaction is to react as an expert and be like, no, I can give an explanation for that, but you're talking out of your ass. You don't actually have an answer. You just want to cover your ass because you don't want to admit that you don't know. It's so hard for these people to say that they don't know. And so this is what I'm trying to get people to do. I want people to question. I've never formally given my stance as to how I think all of this happened. I'm giving a critique. You can come to your own decisions about how it happened. And again, this is fair. German Shepherds, I have a PhD. I call them coyotes. They're German Shepherds for sure, but I call them coyotes. They don't belong to the streets. They belong to the forest. They belong to the mesa. They belong in the desert. Like, these mofos straight up walking around trying to lead people astray. It's like, you know how coyotes go and they'll be in heat to tease out dogs. Like, they'll be in heat and then tease out a dog, and the whole pack of coyotes will gang up on the dog and eat it. That's what academia does to intelligent people who just want to make something of themselves. They entice them in with all of this, well, not really pussy, but they entice them in with all of this, like, oh, you'll be an expert and you'll get to do all the things you wanted to do on Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and sell you on a dream, make you think you're going to be Steve Irwin. And then they hit you with all this Scientologist, all this materialistic, atheistic bullshit about like how humans come from monkeys and we're all just descended from pond scum that became shape-shifting organisms because of some shit that Darwin saw in the Galapagos between a bunch of finches, and something that was so obvious that we knew about it back when we were domesticating dogs and horses has now become the foundation of this theory where sheep can become fucking whales and humans descend from lemurs. Like, that's basically where we're at. Where it's like Eucontoglires, which I'll show you. Eucontoglires. I'll show you glires first. But it's this idea that rodents and primates share a common ancestor. And I'll show you this shit, no cap, no joke. Oh, wait. So it's this idea that your Contoglires. Yeah, so let me change this to English. German Wikipedia is a joke. But look at this. So Eucontoglires, supraprimates, is a clade or a superorder of mammals with living members that belong to one of the 5 groups. Rodents, so literal rats, logomorphs, which are rabbits, tree shrews, so like South American tree shrews, colugos, which are like flying squirrels but in Asia, and primates, like literally us, bruh. So there's this whole taxonomic thing that tries to tie humans in with rodents and hares. These are who we're saying is our closest ancestors. So whales came from sheep and we come from rabbits. Whales come from sheep and we come from flying squirrels. That's basically what we're being told by these people with PhDs that think that they're so they think they have all the answers. They don't know how ridiculous they sound when they come up with shit like this. Where bats and deer have a common ancestor, and humans and mice have a common ancestor. So next time you go and want to kill a rat, realize you're killing one of your closest ancestors, one of your closest relatives. Then there's Eurasiatheria. Look at this shit. Unironically placing, what is it? Eurasiatheria. They say it's a wastebasket task, meaning that there's no actual genuine, historically lumping together several lineages based on superficial attributes and assume relations to modern mammals. In these cases, these orders have turned out to be either paraphyletic, meaning that they're adjacent but not actually legitimately the same, or not consistent with Eurasiatheria. So this one has already been deboomed, and yet people are still, for some reason, trying to show this one. So we disprove Eurasiatheria, but people are still shilling for you our Contoglires. Interdasting. Why is it that you're so much more keen to tie in the primates to the rodents, but not wolves to bats? So you're going to sit here and claim like, oh no, the wolf to bat relation is exaggerated. We think bats are more closely related to deer, and primates are more closely related to rabbits. Interdasting. So that's all tied into Boreoeutheria. So this is placing wolves and rabbits as closer together than wolves and these guys. It's like, my dude, like I don't even know what they're doing anymore. They Alantogeniata, which places wolves and places elephants and sloths and Sirenians and all these Afrotherian guys into one order. It's like, look at all of this beautiful taxonomic mess, and then you get here. So Scrotifera, beasts with a scrotum. I'm not making any of this up. You can find this online. This Scrotifera puts all the animals with a scrotum in one class. So you have your Scrotifera, but Scrotifera is not part of Eucontoglires. So we have a scrotum, but we're not in Scrotifera. See how that works? So you got to read between the lines. So just because we have a scrotum doesn't mean we're in Scrotifera. All members of the group have a post-penile scrotum, often prominently displayed except for some aquatic forms and pangolins. So there's already exceptions. Testes just below the skin. So pangolins are part of Scrotifera but don't have a scrotum. We're not in Scrotifera, but we do have a scrotum. See how that works? See how much sense science makes? So pangolins don't have a true scrotum but are in Scrotifera. We have a true scrotum but we're not in Scrotifera? Yeah, your ancestors are a fish and a rat. Your ancestors were a rat, and before they were a rat, it was a lizard. Before it was a lizard, it was a newt, and then before it was a newt, it was a fish. Come on, get with the program. Before it was a fish, it was pond scum. Come on, Emmanuel, this is easy, bro. What are you talking about? What are you? What are you retarded? Did you go to school? You should know this. Come on. Come on, we all come from pond scum. So yeah, so pangolins don't have a scrotum and are in Scrotifera. We have a scrotum, we're not. It appears to be an ancestral character for this group, yet other orders generally lack this as an ancestral feature, with the probable exception of primates. So primates, to give you a refresher, we're put over here with the Euchrontoglires, while in Scrotifera over here is placed all the way over here from us. So this entire clade, which is based together because of scrotums, we're excluded from as quote-unquote primates just to put us closer to rats. It's like it's almost being done intentionally as a fuck you to humanity, to try to like, oh yeah, we're not closely related to wolves and bears and elk and rhinoceros and shit. No, your closest relative is a fucking rabbit. Peter fucking Rabbit is your closest ancestor. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it's I can't take these people seriously. The Scrotifera Euchrontoglires dichotomy is pretty mind-blowing to me. Because you base all of Scrotifera off of possessing a scrotum, but then leave primates out of it. You'll include pangolins, which don't have testicles, or don't have a scrotum whatsoever, but you'll exclude primates that do, just so you can put primates closer together to rats and rabbits. Science. This is science right here. That's what I wanted to basically cap this with. But yeah, it's insanity. I also want to take this time, now that I'm over the actual Triassic part, to address some recent events. So what is up with this Dylan Mulvaney stuff? I have to give my response. Who is oh my god. Who is trans advocate Dylan Mulvaney? I cannot read any of this shit. She became okay. CNN's using all the pronouns. I can't. New York Times. Are you gonna have okay? So this is Dylan Mulvaney, and this is a paywall. Oh my gosh. See, I already hate these people enough. Don't give me a paywall too. I would go to Berliner. Oh, there's time.com. Oh, here's all the Bud Light cans. Ooh, look at that. Beautiful. Animorph charts. Yeah, it's the assumption that all the creatures that we group taxonomically, this is the difference between phylogenetics, which means literally forming trees out of origins, and taxonomy. Taxonomy just tells you which animals share the most characteristics. It doesn't tell you anything about descent. But yeah, that's pure fucking Animorphs, bro. It's bullshit. And like phylogenetics is pure bullshit. I adhere solely to taxonomy. It's the only thing worth adhering to, because phylogenetics is, it's like, come on, at least the Bible dedicated like what, 2 pages or something to descent of Jesus. The Norse mythology had the whole thing with Yggdrasil, but it's like, you motherfuckers, your world tree is some convoluted bullshit that doesn't make sense. Like, that's great. But here's Bud Light. So here's Bud Light simping for the gays. They make up 2% of the total population. Transformers make up like 0.03% or something. And then this is who they shill to. It's like Bud Light has always been notorious for being like a big thing for like conservative beer drinkers. Like the Mexicans and Hispanics have Modelo, and the Jews have Manischewitz. But all these deracinated milk toast, eat my cornbread with no spices white people, they have Bud Light and Coors. So Mulvaney partnered with Bud Light earlier this month and made a sponsored Instagram post for the beer that showed a custom can featuring an image of his face. I'm misgendering this dude. This guy's still named Dylan. Get the fuck out of here. This guy's still named Dylan. His name is Dylan. It's not Delania. It's not Delina. It's not Dylan E or something. It's literally still Dylan, like my nigga Dylan. No, bro, I'm using him, his pronouns with you. Motherfucking Dylan out here is like, yeah, I'm Jeff. I'm Jeff, the transgender. I'm a man. But I'm a woman trapped in a man's body. See, Bud Light isn't gay. A relationship with women. It's sex with men. That it is straight up. I don't care if I have to be Ice Cube in this moment. I don't have the braids, but I'll be Ice Cube, and I'm gonna tell you, any dude who transgenders and doesn't change their name is not taking this serious enough. This man, it's like, yeah, when you don't even change your name, that's where I can't give a shit. It's like, you won't even change your first name, but you expect me to change your whole pronoun structure. You expect me to look at, I'm glad they don't have its picture. I'm just going to refer to you as an it. I'm not going to misgender you. I'm just going to call you it. So, Mulvaney partnered with Bud Light, made a sponsored Instagram post for the beer that showed a custom can featuring an image of its face. The post was quickly bombarded with hateful comments and threats to boycott the company for featuring it. Online, criticism's grown over Bud Light's quiet retreat following the backlash. So all of these hate comments, but they lose how many billions in market price and after this pushback. It's like Anheuser-Busch caves to the pressure of a massive campaign against the company after it used trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney as a spokesperson for Bud Light. Read between the lines of the statement and you can see why the company is running scared and kicking Mulvaney to the curb. So let's go on Twitter. Anheuser-Busch caves to the pressure of a massive campaign against the company after it used trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney as a spokesperson for Bud Light. Read between the lines. So here's the actual letter. I've seen very few people actually read this letter out word by word. Most people I've seen have just completely skimmed over this and haven't actually read it. So I will read it. Okay, I'll put on my best Anheuser-Busch voice. As the CEO of a company founded in America's heartland more than 165 years ago, I am responsible for ensuring every customer feels proud of the beer we brew. We're honored to be part of the fabric of this country. Anheuser-Busch employs more than 18,000 people, and our independent distributors employ an additional 47,000 valued colleagues. We have thousands of partners, millions of fans, and a proud history supporting our communities. Military, first responders, sports fans, and hard-working Americans everywhere. We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing people together over a beer. My time serving this country taught me the importance of accountability and the values upon which America was founded: freedom, hard work, and respect for one another. As CEO of Anheuser-Busch, I'm focused on building and protecting our remarkable history and heritage. I care deeply about this company, this country, our brands, and our partners. I spend much of my time traveling across America, listening to and learning from our customers, distributors, and others. Moving forward, I will continue to work tirelessly to bring great beers to customers across our nation. So as you can see, this is basically like a default in case of kiss ass apology break glass. Nothing specific was mentioned about the Transformer community. Nothing was said about the backlash itself. It was just some general bullshit that this man put out of his ass. And here are the replies. They literally made some of the worst beers, and this they made some of the worst beers on earth, and yet people are boycotting them because they partnered with a pretty woman who wasn't. Wait a minute, I have to reread this because my brain cells just died. They literally make some of the worst beers on earth, and yet people are boycotting them because they partnered with a pretty woman who formerly wasn't a woman. People have very odd priorities. See, now that's just a level of retarded that you can't really get a grasp on until you go into it's like somebody had to sit down, type this out, and post it unironically. And I don't know if this guy's trolling. He says data geek, so I think he's some beta bitch soy boy who's never done a push-up in his entire life. So it makes sense that he has literally zero testosterone and thinks that a literal man in a dress is a pretty woman because he's just never had any female contact in his entire adult life. But I'll read some more of these replies. says woman, just woman. So this bitch is so dumb she can only say one word like a fucking caveman. A pretty woman who wasn't formerly a woman. Yeah, definitely normal stuff. So that guy finally calls this absolute numbskull out. If it ain't got a birth canal, it ain't no woman. See, now this is a guy, no profile picture, literally his name. This man is definitely over the age of 30, and I'm fucking with him right now. I'm vibing with you, brother. Dr. Michaela Sarah Mosing, she was formerly a woman, but docs assigned her the wrong gender at birth against her will. You better not be an actual doctor. See, now this is some dyed-haired retard feminist. And again, it's like you're not even surprised when a woman with dyed hair even says that. There's something in nature called somatic coloration. So that's when, like, let me show you. So somatic coloration, so I'll show you an example of somatic. Let me see. Oh, what is it called? I think it's called aggressive camouflage. I misspelled aggressive mimicry. No, it's not aggressive mimicry. It's it should just be somatic colorations. Man, this is garbo. Let me just put in warning coloration because he's stupid. So there's different kinds. Let me show you this kind. Batesian mimicry. It's not mimicry. It should just be called somatic coloration. If I look a poison dart frog, I'll show you what I mean. But it's like these women literally dye their hair so that I don't have to pretend to avoid them for any other reason. It's like you just dye your hair and it's like perfect. Why do they not have it? Am I misquoting it? It should be called somatic coloration. Aposomatism. What the hell? Why does it take so long to find that? Anyway, so aposomatism is the advertising by an animal to potential predators that is not worth attacking or eating. This unprofitability may consist of any defenses which make the prey difficult to kill and eat, such as toxicity, venom, foul taste or smell, sharp spines, or an aggressive nature. So, I feel like it should be aposomatic coloration. I think they just call it aposomatism. But that bright blue hair, man, that bright blue hair is a definite sign that you're dealing with some wonky BS. Formerly a woman, but the docs assigned her the wrong gender at birth. How are you formerly a woman? It's like cutting your balls off doesn't make you a woman. And this is apparently a controversial take. So here's the thing that I don't get. It's like you are well within your rights to consider yourself whatever you want to be. But expecting other people to suddenly accept what you are is ridiculous. So this is one thing I love about the Transformers too, and the LGHD TV community as well, is that they have the whole it's like just how the black community kind of retook the word nigga with a soft A. They've done the same thing for queer, except they kept the hard R. I don't know why you kept the hard R in queer. You call them like, oh, what's up, my queer? But they're like, no, queer. It's a queer community. We're taking back the queer community. I'm like, you're just gonna keep queer? Like queer's not still. It's like, oh, we're reconquering the word. It's like, why don't you reconquer the word like faggot then? Like, why can't you recall like? Can you not like reconquer those words? Like, why specifically like queer? I don't get it. It's like they say queer, and it's like, do I even dare say it? Like, can I say the word queer? But then that's what they want. They want you to be able to like question what you say. And this is what like representation, advertising become more common in commercials, billboards, and social media. Activists say the impact can be positive, but the queer community is long advised to be critical of superficial allyship known as pink washing. So it's already bad enough they're literally everywhere, but now they're complaining about being everywhere because it's pink washing? Art of superficial allyship? Like, what does this even mean? Anti-woke rightoids handshaking with weird leftists. I didn't even know pink washing was a thing. So here apparently is Dylan Mulvaney's Instagram. Good Lord. Look at the makeup. Look at the difference in skin color between his face and his body. Look at how he's trying like to I don't even know what he's saying. I'm not even trying to know what he's saying. Happy March Madness. Just find out this had to do with sports. And not just saying it's a crazy month. In celebration of the sports thing, Bud Light is giving you the chance to win $15,000. And his like face is on the Bud Light. So this is who they're calling like formerly a woman when he's been a woman for less than a year. Like he formally transitioned less than a year ago. I hope people understand that. And he's over here like being autistic. No offense to the autists out there. A little bit to offense to the autists out there. I don't even know what to say because now even like the queer activists and groups suggest looking closely into how a company treats queer employees and handles partnerships with the LGBTQI LMNOP community plus that can help customers distinguishing pink washing from true allyship. And it just makes me want to blow my effing brains out because seeing this, it's like Dylan Mulvaney is like my age. Like look at this clown. This is like a drag queen. This is like an Adam's apple containing makeup wearing drag queen. And you're saying that this is the face, this is Bud Light's it girl? This is a woman now? Like this is like dude, I look more like a woman than he does. I could make a 10 times hotter girl than Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan comes from a well-connected family in San Diego. Yeah, who would have thunk it? Declined to comment. Ugh. Travis Tritt, Kid Rock. While Nike announced Mulvaney was going to model women's sports apparel, critics called it a slap in the face. So it's like nothing screams feminism to me like men LARPing as women, taking up slots that women should take up. It's like Dylan went to the White House in fall where she spoke to President Biden about her year of transitioning. So he got to go all the way to the White House looking like this. Oh, God, it like zoomed in. Like this is Dylan Mulvaney. Like, I'm sorry, bros. I'm sorry, but it's like the entire world has lost its mind. And I know that the whole thing with Ukraine and Taiwan is heated up. I know all that. But like before I even I had to address this because this is one of the things that like on top of like the church shooting by the Transformer that was never labeled a hate crime. Like if I look up Christian children killed or massacred by trans, this is what comes up. Details about the NAFTA. These are the first three results. NY Post, News Sky, and NBC News. So NBC News is the first result. Hours after the fatal shooting at a Christian private school, police say the suspect was transgender. That information has fed what one trans activist called a disinformation ecosystem. This is the first result. So when there's a hate crime against the Christians in America, on American soil, the first thing that you see is somebody going to some random troon who calls this a disinformation ecosystem when your shooter obviously did this as an attack on Christians, and you're the first news result. This is super deliberate. A heavily armed shooter blasted her way through a Tennessee Christian school, killing 6, was identified as Aubrey Elizabeth Hale. Legally purchased 7 guns, including 3 she used to gun down victims. Shooter was also being treated for an emotional disorder. They did not elaborate on what emotional disorder. Hale also identifies transgender. Asked whether Hale's identity be a factor in motive, Drake said, "There's some theory to that. We're investigating all the leads." So they BS us to our face. They tell us, "Oh, it's like," and so why do I make these critiques through history? Why did I make this segment on Dylan Mulvaney? Why did I make this little abridge talking about what happened with the Decepticons shooting all those Christian children? It's to highlight this is what happens when you trust the science. This is what happens when you blindly trust authority. This is what happens when you constantly give people a voice that don't deserve one. People who talk out of their asses, people who don't actually adhere to the facts, people who take data and run with it. On one hand, you think, oh, it's just science, it's just some evolution, whatnot, it's just one person's take, but then it's now institutional. It starts with human beings come from monkeys, and everybody comes from pond scum, and that all life was created at a hydrothermal vent or when a lightning struck a pond, and now we've already gotten to the point where men can become women. Men can become women. Anybody who says otherwise is hateful. And it's an attack on. It's like, this is how far we've gotten. Where fish can become mammals and men can become women. The same people that will tell you straight up to your face about macroevolution will be the same people that'll tell you I can't define what a woman is. I can tell you the beginnings and ends of the universe. So the universe began with the Big Bang, but I can't tell you what a woman is. Welcome to science. So this is going to be my teaser. I want to get back on the horse. I don't expect there to be another month-long hiatus. I really don't. Unless I get sick again or unless something really happens, I'm probably going to try to be at this next week. Again, I always say that I'm never going to take another month-long hiatus, and then I do. So if I shut up this time, maybe it won't happen. But if there's anything else you want me to talk about or sling at me, like while I wrap up, that'll be great. But yeah, I actually legitimately did only expect this to last for an hour and a half. So we're at the last 3 minutes of the stream. So if you want to pitch anything at me to look up or talk about while we're basically in the terminal phase of this stream, then let me know. But yeah, this is something that, again, I'm not abashed about anyway. I don't care if YouTube never monetizes me or wants to flag this or whatever. But it's like, you have a clear trans activists are calling for more blood after the Nashville shooting. Here's how Christians should respond. And it's like, this is incredible. How you have a very clear stop oppressing. The people with nothing left to lose will sometimes, but instead become martyrs. Trans week of visibility. It's like you got to understand, who are the martyrs here? The person who went and shot a bunch of kids or the kids themselves? It's like, I see all of this news. I have all these people blowing up my feed with this nonsense, and I just don't get it. I don't get how people can sit by and put up with this crap anymore, but then you see how indoctrinated they are, how afraid they are to speak out. But I'm just letting you know, there's more to life than obeying the whims of random people. And I have no more love for people who support the trans community and the LGBT HDTV community and all these other people that want to go along with these bandwagons. And I'm sick of supporting people's delusions. I'm sick of pretending like a man sleeping with another man, or a woman sleeping with another woman, something that'll never make any kids, relationships that are always abusive, are never really that stable, and yet are propped up as just as normal as stable monogamous relationships that last for years. We wonder why marriage is a joke. We wonder why our society is a joke. We wonder why our military is a joke. We wonder why our politics are a joke. Our people are a joke. Our society is a joke. Because you believe things that are utterly preposterous just because some random fuck in a lab coat, some psychologist, some biologist, some physicist tells you what to believe, and you unironically take them at face value just because they jumped through a bunch of hoops and took a bunch of exams. This motherfucker took some exams, wrote some papers someone told them to wrote, and you're going to believe everything they say now? That's what I want to leave you with. It's like, we've gotten to the point where it's going to be men dressed as women shooting at police, shooting at Christians. It's like we're gonna have a second crusade fought against a bunch of men who think they're women. The actual dystopia that we're living in is incredible. Where now Christians are being attacked not by Muslims, not by Buddhists, not by pagans, by Transformers, by Decepticons. This is Autobots versus Decepticons. This is like a real life Michael Bay movie, except it's real life. It is a real life Michael Bay movie. So that's what I want to leave you with. I'm going to come at you with the Middle Triassic next week. I want to make this much more regular of a thing. Again, I got busy with work. So I'm not going to apologize, I guess, because, again, I can't help losing my voice due to a sore throat. I can't help being slammed with work when I just started the job. But I'm definitely going to try to be more consistent with this. Again, even if I'm screaming into the void, it doesn't matter. What you have right now is a society in full-scale decadence mode, a society that's lost its marbles. And yeah, it's like what you said here. Yeah, Mr. Beast crew that turned, yeah. It's yeah, and my view for trannies is not too spicy for YouTube. I will put anything I want on this channel, on this platform. If they want to say, oh, this is discriminatory towards I have no concerns. A man cannot become a woman. A woman cannot become a man. You are what you're born as. No amount of mental delusion or psychosis is going to change reality. If you were born with a penis and testicles, if you were born with an XY chromosome, you're a man. If the opposite is true, if you're born with XX in women's parts, you're a woman. And if you're intersex, then you're deformed. That's it. That's it. There's no more genders. There's no more sexes. I don't know how to explain this enough. Our species is going extinct if people don't get it through their heads that you have to pair a man with a woman. You're literally so. It's like, can these people go touch grass, please? It's not a point that I have to debate. There's not up for debate. A man is a man and a woman's a woman. I'll go out to the Serengeti right now. I'll go out to rural China. I will talk to 3.5 billion people about what a man is and what a woman is, and I will get the same answer almost every single time in a roundabout way. Can a man become a woman? Can a woman become a man? No. Unless you can change their genes and actually change their body parts without mutilating them, then sure. But until then, you can't. So how about that for a spicy take? That's my take on the Transformers. And if they want to say it's hate speech, then come at me, bro. Come at me. I bet this is some shit they'll pull up in 5 years to cancel me. I'll be trying to host the Oscars or some shit, and they'll be like, you know what? We have disturbing footage. And suddenly it'll be my Afro ass over here talking about like, oh yeah, from Transformers. Transformers, robots in disguise. If I ever become a transgender, I'm going to call myself Starscream. And everyone will have to address me as Starscream and use my pronouns Shrek and Shaq. And that's to be Shrek and Shaq. Or maybe Shrek and Shaq. Get that extra fricative on it. Or it has to be a rolled R. Like I'll be so I'll be for him, and then for his, and you have to use complete. I want you to use completely genitive pronouns when addressing me. It's not him, his. It's his. So that's instead of he, you have to use his as well. So my pronouns are his. So you know what? This is just how it is. His is how it is. Thiz is how it is. So I mean, I could say Thiz instead of his, right? That's just a T in front of the H. It's not too different. So you have to say Thiz, like, oh, that's Thiz car, or maybe it's like the Crips or the Bloods, where all the C words, like a bookie is a cookie. So all the C words are replaced with B's, like buzzing, or bull instead of cool. You know, we could do that. I mean, the Crips and the Bloods are doing it way before these Transformers were. So that's all I'm saying. Well, Emmanuel, it's been great. I never watched Mr. Beast because he's always seemed like a showboating, virtue signaling soy boy to me. So while everyone else is sucking Mr. Beast's dick, I think that he's a complete sham that pretends like, oh, look how much of a virtuous person I am doing all this good. I never trust people like that. everybody who ever has done that in my entire life has always turned out to be some sort of shitbag. And seeing him just blindly support one of his buddies becoming a transformer just because he doesn't want the backlash, like, oh, so I'm such an accepting guy that I'm gonna let my friend entertain these mentally ill delusions so he can go mutilate his genitals. Like, nah, bro, friends don't let friends become transformers. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, it's been great. Thanks for coming, Emmanuel. Thanks for dropping by. The other couple people that I saw drop by. It's been a great stream. Definitely a way to come back from a hiatus, slinging hard. And if there's any other big news that happens, I'm kind of gonna want to cover a bit of the news because the Taiwan thing is escalating. Bakhmut's about to be taken. Somebody leaked another document for with the CIA over some Minecraft server or something on Discord. Another War Thunder incident. But yeah, so yeah, bro, it's been great. You go AFK, I go AFK. It all works out. So yeah, Middle Triassic shenanigans, Middle Triassic trickery is going to be next week, hopefully. And there'll be enough to cover. I'm parsing up the research, so I don't have to sit here streaming for 6 hours just on the Triassic. I don't know if I could do that to myself. But yeah, it's been great. Thanks for showing up. And again, stay frosty. You guys got this. And good luck. I'm glad that you're going to be driving soon, Emmanuel. It's awesome. So yeah, have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to go eat some crab. So peace out, dog.